to be installing a House2Start chassis battery charger around the 50 amp Redarc DC to DC charger that's under the passenger seat. So let's get started. Okay, so now we're going to remove the passenger seat, which is where the Redarc DC DC charger is. So we're going to remove, we have 4 of these bolts on each corner, and it's 10 millimeter. And you have to move the seat around so you can get your deep well socket in. So we will get on with removing the seat. Okay, one thing that we do have to do is there's a little clip. I don't know if you can see it, but basically it's right there. It's hard to see. There it is. That's a clip that's holding the wire bundle for the electric seat. So we're going to pull this clip. I think it just pushes down. I might need to get a screwdriver to do that. Anyway, we're going to pull this to free it because we want to give ourselves as much slack with the wiring as possible, because if you pull or stress on this electric seat wire, it's more than just the electric seat. It powers like ABS, your seat belt clips, I mean, all different features. So if you put any stress or stretch on these wires, it'll throw a Mercedes code, and then you've got to go to the Mercedes dealer to get it reset. So we don't want that to happen, so we're going to give ourselves as much slack as we possibly can so we can move the seat and not worry about stressing those wires.
Oh, and I have to do the front one, right?
Yeah. Okay, and that's what it looks like once you unclip it from the lip that's right down here. We need to put down cardboard over your vinyl, because when we move this seat, and we need to put it back here, because all we're going to do is basically tip the seat. We've got to get it off this base, so we're going to, tip it that way. You might want to move your seat forward so we can have more room to lay this seat down behind, sort of behind it.
And tip it.
Yeah. Lift and tip. Oh, don't lift it too high.
Okay.
Because I forgot about that. No, don't lift. Okay, more roll it. No, now keep that cardboard under. Yeah, Shannon, help him. Okay, now just tip it your way. Tip it your way.
Okay.
No, don't pull it off. Don't pull it off anymore.
Okay.
We just want to tip it.
Okay, just tip it.
Okay.
Oh, because of the wiring.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
How's that?
All right, now bring it just a little bit more. Okay, now is it resting okay?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to.
You could move this way a
Okay,
little
wait,
bit.
let me move this a little bit.
All right.
Let's take this top out. Okay. But see,
Is that all right?
I don't know if you can see, but like up here, I mean, this metal really cuts in like to the cardboard. So you definitely always want to protect. I mean, it'll cut into your linoleum in a second. So you always want to protect it. Okay, so you've got that leaning up there fine?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, we got plenty of slack on the cord, which is great. I unclipped this little side panel that has the awning switches on it. If you can see, there's a clip. So you can feel on the outside and push that clip down, and this just pops off.
Okay.
So
Look at all that.
then that gets us out of the way. But see, basically this whole under area is empty. And this is the Redarc DC to DC charger that Leisure installs. And this DC to DC charger, this is your alternator charging. So when the engine is running, it's pulling power from the alternator to charge your house battery. So this is a house battery charger when driving.
Okay, so when I'm driving, the alternator is charging all the house batteries.
Right, to a total of 50 amps per hour.
Okay.
That's what this puts out.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to unclip all of this because we're going to tap into the house battery wire of this Redarc for our new chassis battery charging power. So, but first, before we do that, I want to open up the chassis battery box because we have to actually run a new chassis battery wire from this box to the chassis battery. So we'll do that next. Okay, so the first thing we do, the chassis battery is actually on the floor right here. So we have to take off this little panel, and these are T25 Torx bit screws, and then we'll also need T30 once we take this off to get to the battery underneath. So I'll just get on with that. Oh, yeah, so anyway, so you lift this up like this, and then we have to pull this pad okay. And now we have and then these are T30. Now we're going to be running 14 gauge wire. So once I get this off, I'll find the best way to pull a 14 gauge wire between the seat and the passenger seat and this battery box. Okay, so under here is the positive battery terminal. And this just snaps off. So this is the positive battery terminal right here. And as I said, we're going to be running 14 gauge wire so we can connect to that. I think I'm just going to pull it through here instead of trying to, get it to go through the channel. If you feel right under this corner, you can feel the foam that this flooring is sitting on top of. So I'm going to stick this coat hanger right under that foam and hope that it comes out where David's finger is.
What? Yep.
You see it?
Yep.
Here's some needle nose pliers.
Oh, here we go. Right there.
Oh, there it is. You see it, Sharon?
Yep, there it is right there.
Okay. All right.
You got it.
Okay.
Cool.
So now we will hook a 14 gauge wire to that. Pull it through.
Yep.
All right, so now we
Yep.
taped the 14 gauge wire on the end of this coat hanger. And now we're pulling that through slowly. And there. Oh, that's good. It just pulled off.
But you got it before it pulled off?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, good.
Okay.
All right.
Fabulous. Now we have our House2Start chassis battery wire, and here is our House2Start. This is how it comes to you. I'm not sure if they're still giving you these little connectors because they're not necessarily used, so it's really kind of a waste for the company to supply them because you don't really use them. You get the instructions, and then you get the House2Start device, and it's simple. I mean, it's very small. That's what I like about it. It's very compact. They have these little jumpers where you can choose different configurations, but this default configuration is exactly what we want for a lithium battery. And it tells you the yellow goes to your house battery, the blue goes to your chassis battery, which is, we ran this new wire for it. And they recommend for this distance. 16 gauge might have been okay, but I always like to upsize the wire. You know, you'll get the least voltage drop. And then your black is your ground. So now I need to see, and I'm also going to add an on-off switch to the input, which is your yellow house battery wire, and we're going to install it on this awning panel on the front. So David always has a way to turn off the House2Start, disconnect it basically, disconnect the house and chassis batteries from each other by turning this off. Okay, so now I need to disconnect, take all these little zip ties off so I can see how to get to the wiring that we want off the Redarc for the house battery. Now the reason we're not using the chassis battery wire of the Redarc is because Leisure installs it on an ignition control relay, which is what you're supposed to do, because you only want the DC to DC charger to be on when the ignition is on. So Leisure uses an ignition controlled relay to make sure that the Redarc actually turns off when the ignition is off, and that's on the chassis battery wire. So we can't use the chassis battery wire because we've got that relay in between. So that's why we pull this new chassis battery wire, so we have a direct connection straight to the chassis battery. Okay, so let's take all this apart and see what we have. Open this up so I can get to the correct wire. Okay, now, so the Redarc is basically this big cable. The wires for the Redarc is this big cable. And, oh, we've got another cable. But anyway, I'm going to take this off. What do I want? I'll take this off too to give myself a lot of room to work. And we'll put all this back on and get all this zip tied back together once we get done. Okay, so the wire that we want is this brown wire. Which is taped to a red wire. So this brown wire is coming off of the Redarc. So if we peel this back, in fact we can peel it back so you can see it better. If we peel this back, we'll reveal the Redarc wiring. And the brown wire is the house battery wire. So that's the wire that we want to connect to for the house battery wire on the House2Start. And you can see that Leisure has the brown wire spliced to this red 6-gauge wire. They use a 6-gauge wire. And it, if you can see, it's actually running this way. So it's running towards the battery box, and that's where it connects. It connects to a mega fuse in the battery box. So that's how we know this is the house battery wire. So I now need to get on with deciding how I want to splice into this. But another good feature is we're going to cut this cable, this house battery cable, and I'm going to install this 60 amp circuit breaker. We can put it down here, put a screw in it, you know, to secure it. Anyway, so we're going to put the battery side on the battery terminal of the circuit breaker, and then we're going to put the Redarc side on the auxiliary terminal of the of this circuit breaker. So what this does is this gives you an opportunity to use it as a switch. I mean, not only is this going to give you the overcurrent protection, I mean, it's redundant, but it's still there, because Leisure actually has a mega fuse a 60 amp mega fuse in the battery box, but this one will be closer to the Redarc. So, you know, basically you're going to have an overcurrent protection on each end, which is, you know, good. It's redundant, but, you know, that's a plus. But also you can use this as a switch. So this is closed, which means the current is flowing between these terminals. And when you want to disconnect it, you just pop it open.
And that would disconnect the chassis battery, or the house
it'll
battery from the
Redarc.
Yeah,
right,
Redarc.
right.
Yep.
So now we're giving you two ways that you can actually separate, you know, the chassis battery side from the house battery side. And that's important sometimes if you're troubleshooting. You know, you want to make sure, like I said, when we first disconnected the house battery, Leisure doesn't give you a way to turn off the solar. So if you were trying to troubleshoot your battery, first you got to pull the batteries out, you got to find the solar fuse, you got to pull the, you know, pull that fuse. You know, there's not an easy way where you can just simply turn the solar panel power off, so you know you're just dealing with battery, you know, the battery power. But anyway, so this is going to give you, you know, a feature to actually disconnect, you know, if you ever, you know, need to. And like I said, it's a redundant overcurrent protection. So, you know, that's a, you know, it's not necessary, but, you know, it's a plus. Okay. So, so that's my next thing, is deciding, you know, where I'm ultimately going to connect all this stuff. But I want to make the circuit breaker, so I'll probably put the circuit breaker up here,
so we could reach it
so
through that.
Yeah, so you just pop off this your awning cover, then you can easily reach your hand in to do something with it if you have to. Okay. So I'm just gonna put this stuff over here for right now. And this is my battery terminal. So yeah, so I'll just break it right here. In fact, I might turn it sideways. Yeah, so then it'll be easier for me to put part of it here and the other part of it there. Okay. Okay, so like I said, I treat these battery connections as if they're hot. So I want this protected, because this is actually the battery. Yeah, this is the Redarc. So this is actually a battery wire. So I'll put this one on last, but I'll protect it until I get to it. Okay. So now I'm just going to going to crimp lugs onto these wires. Now people think that all this crimping and stuff is maybe intimidating, but it's not if you have the right tools.
Are you going to put that little red thing on there first?
No, it'll go after. Yeah,
okay.
It'll go after. Okay, but I use this crimper. It's a really good crimper. It's very easy. So if you just invest in a, you know, good quality crimper, you're not going to have trouble. And I always put 2 crimps. And it's from iWis. I'll put a link in the description. It's from iWis, and it's a 8 gauge to 2 gauge crimper of lug terminals like we're using. And then I put some heat shrink on it to protect it. And I'm using a DeWalt battery powered heat shrink, but I'm using a large battery pack because you have to use a 6 amp hour or higher battery pack in order for it to really work as a good heat gun for these you know, this kind of heat shrink. Okay, so as I said, this is the Redarc connection. It's connected to the brown, so I'm going to put it on the auxiliary battery terminal. Because the auxiliary means it's just going to the device. And I'm going to plan. So it needs to go about like that. And this is 11 millimeter. Okay, so you want it good and tight. You don't want it to move. Put this little cap on. Okay, and then last but not least, we have the house battery connection. I'll cut that off. Okay, and make sure when you're using, like I use these channel lock wire cutter, just make sure you only cut through the casing, because you don't want to cut into these wires. You want all the wires intact, because the rating of the wiring is based on the fact that all those wires are there. Okay, so let me plan my connection. And when you put the lug on, you want to make sure that all the wires are inside. You don't want any errant wires sticking out. Okay. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to put this on here. Tighten it up. And this is, by the way, this is an insulated socket wrench. So if something was to go awry and I were to hit this on the metal, I'm not going to cause any kind of a short because it's not metal. I put a link. Okay. I'll put a link to a set of these as well. Okay, so now this is on there. Put a little cap. Okay, so now I'm going to put it down here. Put a couple of screws in it. And we will be done. Oh, the thing I need to do is, but yeah, I can go ahead and do that. I may wait because what I need to do that I forgot is we still have our House2Start connection on that. Yeah, yep. Right. So, but at least, you know, we've got it in a safe condition. I don't have to worry. And I'll just go ahead and cut this off. And we'll have, at least have remade our Redarc connections with this new circuit breaker. And on this side, I'll use this little piece where they had it. Okay, so that covered up the connection, the welded connection that Leisure made. All right, so that's done for now. Next, we can get on with our House2Start connection. Okay, so as I said, we're going to, and I need to see how I want to install this. So basically, we're going to have this down here, and I need to get the ground to a ground bolt, which you can go to either one of these ground bolts. I need to get the blue to this terminal right here. That's easy. Oh, plus I'm going to add a switch to this, which will go here. So yeah, so this is going to be fine. And then the yellow is going to that. So I actually probably could put some VHB tape on this and mount it to the wall, and then that way you could look inside. If you need to take this cover off because there's a light here, you could look inside and see your light, what your light situation is from this opening here. So that might be handy. Okay, so let me go get some tape. We'll put it on the back and we'll be able to stick it here, and that will allow us to make all of our connections the way we want, even at the ground. Yeah, okay, cool, I'll do that. AGM battery charging profile are reversed.
Oh.
So your chassis battery likes a high voltage at the front end of charging, and then when it gets pretty well charged up, then the voltage goes low. Lithium is reverse. It starts out at a lower voltage, like 13.6, and takes all of its bulk charging, and then when it's ready to get topped up, then it goes up to 14.4 volts. So it's like reverse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's why you really want an actual battery charger for a chassis battery charging system, because that's a chassis battery, and it's not going to charge, it's not really going to be good for it to be charged under the profile of a lithium battery.
And so that's what this thing does, the Redarc.
Right, Redarc is an actual battery charger, so even though it's basically taking charging that's from a AGM chassis battery system, it's converting it to the correct profile for a lithium battery. And that's the same with this House2Start. It's taking a lithium battery charging profile and changing it for a lead acid battery charger.
Going the other direction.
Exactly.
Yep, got it. The house batteries, or the generator is running,
which runs the inverter, which runs the inverter battery charger. But yeah, so your solar battery charger is charging at a lithium to your house battery.
And the generator?
The generator is using your inverter battery charger to charge the house battery.
Oh, okay.
And then this is taking that charging that it sees on the house battery wire, and it's converting it to the correct charge profile for that AGM chassis battery.
There you go.
So anytime your house battery is being charged, this little device is using that higher charging voltage that it sees, that it senses, to charge your chassis battery. So anytime your solar's charging the house battery, that gets charged. If you're, either plugged in a shore power or generator using the inverter battery charger, chassis battery gets charged. So it's really a nice feature. I mean, you don't have to worry. And on these new models, the parasitic draw on the Mercedes side is huge. I mean, I was just down at CTM Customs, and an owner was reporting on their 2025 that their chassis battery dies in a week.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow,
well, that's one of the
that's
reasons
a lot.
I like this. We went somewhere, and you know what? I don't know what I was doing. I played the radio. It was the only thing I knew I was doing.
Right.
And the battery got not real low, but lower than I thought it should. And I called Holland, and I'll tell you, they're great.
Yeah, they are.
Call them, tell
Yeah.
them who I am. It's like, remember me? Yeah. What? Call anytime you want. Or, you know. And he said, it shouldn't do that. You might want to check it out. But then I thought, well, it's just the radio. So I stopped doing that. And it hasn't really dropped that much. But that's why when I saw this, I thought, this is a good idea.
Well, it has been that it takes about 2 weeks to run. The parasitic draw on the Mercedes side can run down the chassis battery in just 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a long time. 'Cause
Yeah.
we store it, but it's not far away.
Right.
And I go over every week and try to.
Yeah, but what if something happened and you couldn't get over there?
Yeah.
I mean, now this is going to take care of it. I mean, you know, like we literally leave ours for months. I mean, if we're not going to use it,
Yeah.
you know, it'll sit over in our storage area for 3-4 months if that's how long we're going to be gone. And I never worry about it. We go over, shazam, engine starts right up. You know, everything is 100%.
Well, I just, the guy that has the Murphy bed, he had heart surgery. So then he called me and said, can you go put a battery tender on mine? It was inside, so he
Right.
didn't have the solar.
Yeah.
And so we had to do that. And I thought, I don't want to have to do that.
Exactly.
And have to hook it up under
Right.
here.
Right. Yeah. No, it's
Just seemed
definitely
like a
it's definitely a
wonderful
nice
solution.
thing. Yeah, it's definitely worth it. Okay, so what am I doing? Oh, I'm putting VHB tape on this.
Now, what do you call this tape?
It's called VHB, very high bond,
Oh, okay.
and it's from 3M. You know, so it's basically their brand of tape, and it is very high bond. I mean, we actually use it.
I've seen you use it before, and you just stick it on there.
Yeah, I use it on. I mean, the main thing that this is used for, or that I use it for, is hooking solar panels to the roof.
Really?
Yeah, you don't have to drill any holes. This stuff is that good. So to use it on something like this, I mean, it's never coming off because this is so light.
Oh, so you can put solar panels on
yeah.
the roof with this stuff.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Now what?
There's my tape on the back of this thing. It's all ready to go. And I'll put a link to that too. Now we'll just clean this area. Okay. So we'll put it, I think we said about right here. Alright, so you want to press it on there good. Okay, so now that thing is not coming off. Good stuff. Okay, so as we said, the yellow battery, the yellow wire goes to the house battery. So let's start with that one. Let's see. No, in fact, I think I'll do that at the end since we're going to be working with a hot connection there. Okay, so let's do this. Now you can pull this back.
Don't need so much.
Yeah, I don't need so much. Keep going. Okay. And I'll put links to all these tools for people who are interested in buying a tool that makes your job easier. So we're going to just butt splice these wires together. Now see how the little things came out when I pushed it in? You don't want that. You want to make sure you get all the little wire hairs, all the little strands into the Now we just twist it a little bit. Okay. Okay, give them a tug to make sure they're good. These are heat shrink connectors. And that was a heat shrink crimper that I use so it doesn't damage the heat shrink when you make the crimp.
I know I have a heat gun, but it doesn't have that little curly thing.
Oh yeah, that reflects the heat.
I like that. Is that a thing you can add to any heat gun, or did it come specifically
No,
with
you
that?
can add it. Like you can get it on Amazon. In fact, they sell like a little kit with all different shapes, you know, to direct
cool.
the heat. Yeah, pull that through a little bit more.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What's next? I'm going to do the ground. I'll do the ground last, but I'll put the terminal on it. Yeah, that's a little thing we're going to put on your chassis battery so you'll be able to read the voltage and temperature, but you don't really care about the temperature from the Victron Connect app,
and
which is the same thing you'll be using for that smart shunt.
Yeah, okay.
So you'll have both of those
On that app.
because you really don't have any good thing to tell you what the chassis battery voltage is, which is, you know, then you can look at it and see, you know, it really needs to be like 12.2, definitely above 12 to start the engine. So,
Okay, yeah.
so it's, you know, if you're like, like if you turn it and it like goes, and you think, I better check that voltage before I really try it more. Or you're just starting it
That's
up.
all
So
it
you
does.
want to make sure you have a high enough voltage to give you that starting capacity. Yeah.
Okay.
So voltage is more key on a car battery or on an AGM, on a lead acid battery, because it really does tell you what's going on with the battery. On lithium batteries, they basically stay at a high level for a long time. As I said, we are going to be putting this on-off switch for the House2Start connection to the house battery. So all I'm going to do is just drill a hole in this little panel so we can mount the switch there, and David will have that so he can turn his House2Start off and on. I'm not going to drill through this vinyl because I'm just going to cut slits in the hole so it all fits very tight and nice. So I will get on with the drilling. It's like a 3/4 inch hole for this. So I'm going to use what's called a step bit. So we will get on with that. Okay, so I think this bit goes to 1 inch. So I'm just going to drill in increments and then keep testing my switch and make sure I've got a hole. You know, I like how the hole is going to fit. About in the middle of the panel. And I'll put a link to a step bit in the description. So we'll just keep kind of testing this. I don't want to make it too large. This is just a simple on-off switch with 2 terminals. The battery, it has a little plus sign there, so the battery connection is here, and the device, which would be the House2Start connection, is there. Like I said, this is about a 3/4 inch circle, and you can see there's little things they push in to make a tight fit. All right, so now I'm going to simply add the House2Start wire to the center terminal, and then I'm going to run a new wire from here to the battery side of the terminal.
And that would just disconnect the House2Start if I wanted to for any reason.
Right.
Okay.
And that might be, something you would do. Like say you go to the Mercedes dealer, and they've got to, do something electrical or do something with the battery. So you'd want to turn that off because they're not going to know.
It's sending power.
Right.
Yeah, yep.
So that's a good thing to have. And then again, like I said, for troubleshooting, it's also good just to be able to Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to run.
Okay, so we bring this through. As I said, the house battery the House2Start connection is in the center. And then, I need a new piece of wire. And I'm using 16 gauge wire for these connections. Wire, black or red. But I usually have a lot of black, so this is black with red stripes, so that's what we'll use. I always want to give it a little tug. Okay. And then we are going to need that to come down to here, but I want to give you plenty of room to stretch it. So now we're going to attach this directly to the house battery wire that's coming into the Redarc. So remember, that's this larger one that we can trace back that's running that way. And the one that's hooked to the Redarc is the brown wire, and that's hooked to the auxiliary end of the circuit breaker. So I got a little ahead of myself when I tighten that up, but that's easy.
You got some old tools hanging in your garage. You got an old brace and bit.
Yeah.
You know what? I've got my garage in Michigan. I had a bunch of tools that belonged to my dad and some to my grandfather.
I like tools, so I like to see that, see it. Okay, so now this is done. So we can put a couple of screws in that.
Oh, I see, because it has little feet. Otherwise, we could use...
You could use VHB tape. I have used that, like particularly in the battery box, where you're putting it on metal.
It,
We could do it here. We could have done it here, but the fact that it has, screw openings, it's just as easy to put a couple screws in it. And I save screws from jobs.
Screws,
so that it's easy for me to ferret out a couple and use them.
There you go. I always go, where did I put those other screws on? I'll go down and get some new ones.
Yeah.
And I have more.
Yeah, I have jars of them. Okay.
Noticed before, yeah, they got a nice
Let's
piece of wood
use
there.
it.
That
Yeah.
you screw it into the metal, and it's like, she's going to do that with a screwdriver?
Yeah.
It's like, and then I noticed that piece of wood, that's pretty nice. Yeah. So I saw you were down in Florida. I've been reading about this CMT place. This must
CTM, yeah.
CTM must be quite an operation down there.
It is. It's a great shop. It does excellent work. We have our House2Start connected. Our little switch, fantastic. So our very last thing to connect is the ground.
Yep.
Now I never take you can take this ground. Well, we can do it. I don't normally
sometimes
do
you
it.
clip it so you can slide them
that's
on.
what I usually do, just because it's easy.
I watched you do that.
Yeah.
I thought, well, that's handy.
I don't want to take that whole thing off, so I just clip it.
I would have never thought of that. I saw you do that a few times, and I thought, well, that's pretty ingenious, because it's not going anywhere once you get it tight. Yeah.
So, but you can take this off if you want to. Okay. All right, so everything's done. Now we just need to button all this stuff back up. Where's my... There's this. All right, so first I want to put this back on, just like it was. Oh, and for another thing, for people's information, this blue wire, this is the ignition wire to the Redarc. So for people who are doing like a second DC to DC charger, this is where you would get your ignition control wiring for the isolator relay that you'll be putting on the chassis battery wire of the second DC to DC charger, just like Leisure does for the first one.
Oh, and that's the wire you said comes from there. That's why we couldn't use that, because it's only hot when the ignition's turned.
Right, right. So if you were to install a second DC to DC charger, which is very, very popular. I mean, I have one. I mean, I'd totally recommend it, because there's no reason you can't get you can't take 100 amps of charging, house battery charging from the Mercedes alternator. So for people who have big battery banks, I mean, you know, you only have 200 amp hours, but for somebody that has, you know, like we have 960 amp hours.
Oh, you do?
You know, so I want to get.
Where do you put all those batteries? Or they're just larger?
They're very. I use Lithionics batteries. They're very compact.
Oh.
So you can put one under the step and two next to the inverter. And have that much power. I mean, and they're fantastic. Like I can, we have an Atmos air conditioner, and we can run that air conditioner for 20 hours.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not running out of power.
I mean, Lithionics batteries are very high power, high performing batteries. Totally worth it. Okay, so we got this back together. Now I will get my zip ties.
Well, we had this clip then, right? This white.
Oh yeah, I gotta put the clip back on. And you need power. Solar's gonna produce. If you're not using it and the battery's full, then the solar, you know, it's not going to produce anything, because nothing's demanding it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay.
That's a solar controller. All right.
Now they make a better solar controller than the one that you have.
Of course they do.
Yeah, of course there is. And it's also a Victron product. So, and you know, everything is Victron is Bluetooth. So they have an app. So every device that you have that's a Victron device, you can just see it from your phone. So the shunt you're going to be able to see from your phone. That you're going to be able to see your battery voltage reader for your chassis battery from your phone. And if you were to ever replace your ZAMP solar controller with a Victron solar controller, which is a much I'm going to say it's a more advanced technology, so it actually harvests more. It better utilizes the solar power to give you more power.
Where is my solar control?
Your solar controller
Is
should
it
be like
right above the door?
it's either above the door or in one of these cubbies over the cab.
How big is
We'd
it?
have to look. It's just square.
Oh,
it's just a square.
Well,
it's above the
device is
door.
above the door.
Okay, then
and
that's
so you
it.
could just unscrew that.
You could
wire the new one in
You
and put it
could.
in?
Yeah, a lot of people do that. They actually, you know, tell you, you know, to have the solar controller as close to the battery as practical, because you know everything that's closer to the battery has less voltage drop.
Yep.
But if all you know, if that's your capability, then that's better than nothing. You know, that's better than not doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the Victron controller is that much better. It can give you as much as 30% more solar power because of its advanced technology,
So it's
which
more
is a lot.
efficient.
Yeah.
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 It's a lot.
Yeah. And then, like I said, it's Bluetooth, so you know, it gives you so much more information. Like it tells you what your maximum panel voltage was for the day, tells you what your panels actually reached from a maximum, so what the maximum was that you were getting from the panels. It tells you what your all-day watt production was. I mean, it gives you all this data to really understand that you're getting the best use out of your solar. So it's definitely worth it, you know, in my mind, to definitely replace the ZAMP controller with that one.
Yeah, Victron. Okay.
Get that all done. It looks nice. You can't see it, but there's actually a little cutout down here that I can put this
that wire. Yeah.
This wire in here without pinching it. I mean, because that's the thing. So it moves, so it's not being pinched. So that's good, because we definitely don't want to pinch it. So now we want it to lay like that. And we're going to be connecting it to this terminal. So I want to...
those are all on the hot side, all those...
Yeah, which is why I'm keeping it covered up, because if I make a mistake and drop something on it,
it'll go.
Then I'll be crying.
Now, are we fusing this or are we fusing the other thing?
Oh, shoot. I'm glad you reminded me of that. I get involved and I forget what I'm doing. Yes, we definitely want to fuse this.
Okay.
Now, I have put a 5 amp fuse, which is all it needs, because actually it has, the House2Start actually has internal fuses. I think they're at, I want to say they're 3.5 amps, but you know, lower. I mean, the whole the maximum output is of the House2Start is, I think it's 2.3 amps. I know it's literature says 2 amps, but in reality, I think it's like 2.3 amps. So it has internal fuses, but then this is just, you know, a further protection, especially when you're running a long wire. If you're just going to use the 18-inch wires that come with the House2Start, you don't need to fuse it. But when you lengthen the wires, now you need to put a fuse on it.
Okay, makes sense.
All right, so this is a 14 gauge fuse holder. I've already put in a 5 amp standard ATO automotive fuse. I've got a ring connector on it because we're going to put it on this terminal on this battery connection. And then I'm just going to butt splice. I'm just going to butt splice this together. Always pull on your connections. Okay. All right, so now I am ready to make the connections. But first, we are also installing this Victron battery sense. And there's a little sticker on here with a PK number. You need that number if you were to ever forget your password to reset it. And the packaging comes with an extra little sticker like this. So just leave it out, stick it to the instruction manual, you know, for the literature for this little thing, whatever you want to do. But you need to keep that, because otherwise, if you ever had to have it, you're going to have to open up this battery box and find it on this device. So this comes with tape. So we're just going to tape it in a convenient location where I can connect the wires. Positive wire is fused. I believe it's like a 1 amp fuse. So this area will be a good area. And I've got some alcohol swab so I can clean it. Stick it down. Now, this little battery sense, it reads battery voltage, and it also reads battery temperature, which you don't really need to worry about battery temperature. Oh, and here's the little sticker that comes in the packaging. So you want to save this, stick it on something you'll not lose, whatever. And also you write down the password, because when you're setting this thing up on the Victron Connect app, it's going to ask you to change the password from their default 6-0 password. So you also want to keep your password in the same place, because if you forget it when you change phones or something like that, then you're going to have to go through a big reset process with this PUK number to reset your password. So I can't stress how important it is to keep this PUK number and your password someplace safe. All right, so now we're just going to stick this in a convenient place. As I said, I just want to make sure my wiring, so I'm just going to put it right here. Push it down good. Okay. And now we can make our connections. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the positive connection, since I have to take this screw off anyway to put these down. So I want to find a good spot for this fuse. That looks pretty good. Okay. And I'm using my insulated ratchet again. Now we could just cut the little things off and slide them under this nut, but this is easy enough to do as long as you don't drop it. You don't want to drop this nut because it could fall down between the battery and then you'd really be in a mess. So yeah, you want to keep these all in a nice order. Nice and tight. I just want to make sure there's that casing isn't under the nut. It's not. Those are fine. Okay, so we've got all that done, and now all we have to do is I think I'm going to use basically all we need to do now is loosen this ground connection nut. So now I'm just going to loosen this negative nut Okay, and in this case, I am just going to cut out a little section because I don't want to take this nut off. And you can see the little blue light start flashing. Okay. All right, that's all tight. That's how we want it. Okay, so the little blue light is flashing on the Victron Smart Battery Sense, which means it's activated. We can route these wires a little bit more out of the way. Okay, so now see how everything fits with our our terminal covers. There, okay. Yeah, you just got to sort of play with it a little bit, but this isn't being pinched in any way, so that's good. All right, so everything's fine. This is all okay. That's fine. All right, so now we can put our battery box back together. Now I see that could pinch right there. I don't like that. So, gotta put a cover over that wire. Alright, now I'm just trimming back. I don't want this to pinch all of that. So I'm just trimming back this little end piece so I can get a good, basically open this up. All right. Okay. All right, so I notched that out. So that does not squish that more than, you know, it and the wire. I just don't want to pinch the wire that's in there. Okay. So now that's protected. So we can put this back on. This is protected here. So that's going to be fine. All right. Okay. Nice and snug. Now, we can put on our mat. Put our mat back in. I think this goes over. Yeah. Okay. Oh, my trim piece. Okay, so getting to the battery is just this easy. It's a little bit of a puzzle, but it's really not that bad in the scheme of things. As I said before, torque's 30 for your battery box, and this is torque's 25 for this trim panel. That's done. It looks good, and we're done with that. Done. So as soon as we close the circuit breaker, we should see the light for the House2Start come on, and we'll know that's working. When I close this breaker, which all you do is move this little flag up, the light on the House2Start should come on. So let's see how that works. Oh, and we must turn our switch on. I forgot about it.
I was going to say, is that on or off? I didn't know. There you go. Oh no, that's the sunlight.
Okay, so now the red light says we have low input voltage. Okay. All right, our House2Start went blue. We had to plug into shore power to start the battery charger because it had a red light because it wasn't getting a high enough input voltage from the battery to kick on it charging. And what it has to see is 13.6 volts to turn charging on. And then when charging turns off and the voltage drops down to 13.2, then this would actually turn off. So this is working. We can button our seat back up, which we will do. Here we have his we put BB battery monitor, that's his shunt, and BB chassis battery, that's his Victron battery sense voltage reader. So his chassis battery voltage reading, and there's no settings for this. As soon as you call it up, you'll be asked to do some firmware updates. We made the password the same. This uses a six zeros as the very first default password to get in, but then we changed it to the same 6-digit code as his shunt. So he's all set up now.